The other night on the air, I called Tim indispensable, and that's pretty much the best word I've ever arrived at to describe him.
He has really done a service to the country by the way that he is focused on the big issues year in and year out on Meet the Press.
You know, I think Tim has had a real impact on American journalism. You've got to bring your best game to the table on Sundays because you know that he's there with his best game.
From Des Moines, Iowa, this is a special edition of Meet the Press with Tim Russert.
Our issues this Sunday are Meet the Candidates 2008 series continue. An exclusive interview New Hampshire with Democrat the Central Intelligence Agency, its mission, its successes, its
Everybody would come to work on Monday morning and decide, okay, the plate had been reset, especially on politics, every week based on what had happened on Meet the Press.
There was a signature for Meet the Press under the guidance of Tim Russert. The questions were tough, but always fair.
People were sent to the convention center. There was no water, no food, no beds, no authorities there. There was no planning.
I have no intention of running for president.
But that's no intention. Either I will never run or I might run.
Senator John McCain, thanks for joining us and sharing your views.
I haven't had so much fun since my last interrogation.
He was never into gotcha journalism. He'd ask you tough questions, but the main thing was it wasn't just politics, it was substance.
You learn as much as you can about your guest and his and her position on the issues and take the other side. And do it week in and week out. Be persistent, be challenging, but always be civil. And the viewer has a clear sense as to where that political leader wants to take our nation or our country.
The use of words that all of a sudden show up behind Tim's head. Nothing nails a person like the words they have previously spoken or written.
I thought the election of 2000, presidential election, would be the biggest story I'd ever cover until September 11th. That was an amazing night. I talked about the grease board and trying to make the Central Electoral College. When the Florida Supreme Court said, let's start counting again, full statewide recount. And a few days later, the United States Supreme Court said, stop counting, time's up. But I thought, where else in the world would this be resolved by the order of the court as opposed to tanks rolling down the street and soldiers with bayonet? And those kinds of historic moments are very, very important to treasure.
When you drive down from the Capitol in Washington and you look up at the museum to the news business called the Newseum, the First Amendment is etched in stone. It was his idea as a journalist. If you can leave behind an actual monument, a legacy in the city you love in the nation's capital, that to me sums up his career.
By the time Tim got to Meet the Press, it was quite clearly one of the most established news programs on television. And yet he has imprinted his own style and personality on it in such a way that it is difficult now for anyone to believe that Meet the Press was ever done by anyone other than Tim Russert.
We all know that Tim Russert grew up in South Buffalo, working class family. He wrote about it with Big Russ and me.
He has never forgotten his roots. He understands the struggles of the average working person in this country, so I think he represents them.
I have the cheapest and most accurate focus group in America with my mom, dad, and 3 sisters up in Buffalo, New York. They are not involved politically. They are voters, and they are viewers, and they tell me the truth.
Tim said to me, I've had the life that I've wanted to lead. Everything he had, he loved. He said, I love my family, I love sports, I love this program. The people around him loved him, so he led a full life. He just wasn't given the length of years that he deserved.